Welcome. My name is Taylor, and this is Leadership Line of Sight, where we are talking to the leaders of today because hopefully the leaders of tomorrow will recognize some of this in themselves. Today, I have a fantastic host, fantastic guest. I'm going to be the host, and his name is Andrew Fogliato. He has been a realtor turned marketer. He knows that most agents just want to sell homes, so he named his company Just Sell Homes, doing real estate marketing, and he is the new owner of Real Estate Magazine. Andrew, welcome to the show. Welcome to Leadership Line of Sight.
Thanks for having me. And as the new host, I guess I'm going to be asking the questions now.
I would co-host with you anytime, man. I always love it because you and I, when we get together, most of the time we're in fast company. We're around some of the highest producers in real estate, and we're chatting about some things that are pretty high level. So I just like it anytime.
First met too was doing that. Like it was a lunch, I think.
Yeah, I think when I met you was in San Francisco.
Yeah, at the Richard Robbins lunch. I think I got like randomly pulled along. It was Ralph Ciancio.
Yep.
Pulled me along to your it was like a top producer mastermind lunch.
Yeah, but at that lunch also was Richard Robbins and the president of Remax Europe, Michael Polsler.
Yeah.
So that was the first time that you and I had ever interacted.
Yes. And it was funny because I was literally just walking down the street and Ralph saw me. He's like, "Hey, you should come to this lunch."
Isn't he amazing?
Yeah, Ralph's great.
I remember actually the time that I was on your podcast, when I mentioned that I was going there because I was coming from Toronto, coming to Toronto, Ralph's like, "Yeah, I have a car you can take." I'm like, "What?" And literally, he's like, "Just come by the office, pick up my Infiniti, and just head out there." It was just he's incredibly kind and generous. What a wonderful guy. And later that day was our tour of Facebook, where I got to see Mark Zuckerberg's office in person, and that was also Ralph.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we should just call him and bring him in. No, I'm just kidding.
Third guest. Let's do it.
So when we talk about then to now, so when we go back to that, because that would have been like what, February 2017 maybe?
Is it 2016 or 2017? I guess it was 2017.
Yeah. So and we were at Inman in San Francisco. So at that time, you had already had Just Sell Homes for how long?
About 2 years. So we're 7 and a bit now.
Okay, so 2 years in, you're going to major real estate conferences. I'm pretty sure you spoke at Inman that year.
I was on a panel. So it was on like back then, Inman would do like the 2 or 3 main days of the conference, and they did like Agent Tech or Agent Connect the day before. I was on a panel of the Agent Connect one. And
at the time, the main thing that people were moving to was into Facebook marketing.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And so when you take a look at your progression from then to now, because at that point you already knew that you could run ads. If I'm getting part of your story correct, is that you were getting into this position where you would just like max out your time.
You was basically a freelancer.
All hours of the night.
Yeah, like I was essentially a freelancer who then turned into an agency out of need. Like I originally now I remember when I first started, I didn't really know how to price it that well at the beginning. So I remember I priced it at $425 a month, and I would run all your Facebook ads for you, which was wildly under.
That's a great deal.
That's why so many people signed up. I think we got up to within a couple of months, like somewhere in that 16 to 20 grand a month at $425 a month. As you can manage to keep up with that level of demand, I worked a lot, like 16, 17, 18 hours a day, burning out. So I've only got a few of those clients left because we had to between me just burning out and dropping the ball because I was too busy with them. And then, we letting some go on purpose. We had to basically bring it back down, retool, and more than double our prices.
Have you ever heard the phrase, you can't steer a parked car? Like you've got to get it into motion. You can turn it all you want, but it's not actually going to steer until it starts moving. So in this first part of your business, you were kind of proving whether or not you could.
Yeah. And it was all just done quickly. Like I remember it was a Monday night. I was like, I need to pay the bills. I need to do something. This idea we've been tossing around, I'm going to do it. And we just basically, I decided, made a call the next day to my old mentor from when I sold. And I was like, and it was two of them, Marcel and Barb. I was like, Marcel and Barb, you know, you guys have been trying to hire me to do this for you for a while, and I couldn't because of my previous position. I can do it now. $1,000 a month, because they wanted a little bit more than just ads. And I was like, so $1,000 a month, I'll run all your online marketing. And which even then, wildly under what it should be to run someone's entire online marketing. But in my head at like 25, 26 or whatever it was at the time, no, it was a little bit older than that now. I was like 27, 28. I was like, $1,000 a month sounds great for one person. And so I did that. And he's like, yeah, we're in. And I was like, okay, I also need 6 months up front. And they paid me 6 months up front and just basically went from there. And next client, the next day, same thing. I said, that thing you wanted to hire me for, you can do $1,000 a month, 6 months up front. And then we also offered separately that $425. Then it just kind of took off from there. And it was an interesting first year.
Yeah, that must have been incredible. And then you run into the major problem to solve, which is that you are sold out of time.
Yeah.
And you've probably sold more time than you have.
Oh, wildly more. Like, we've got to figure it out. You need at least, to do it effectively, at least 10 hours a month per client.
Okay.
Roughly. Which works out to about, realistically, about 13 clients per person running ads at most. Like, and that's a pretty, like, you're not going crazy in depth on them. And I think at the time I had over 30 to myself. So it did not go great. And that, like, very fair, like some of them who let us go, like, it made sense. And I also learned the valuable lesson that the people who pay the least are the ones who complain the most. So we also found that if you just up your fee, you get people who complain less. Just on that route too. I've heard that before, but I never actually like experienced it. And that was a very quick lesson.
That's something that I think is kind of neat, just the way that you're documenting some of these things that you call mistakes, but a lot of us would look at like milestones.
Yeah.
So the first thing was finding your business target market fit, right? And you found your market. And then after that, pricing is always like a problem, because if you're too lean, then your supply versus demand gets way out of whack, right?
Yeah.
And you end up with these weird symptoms. Like these, like, why is like a quarter of my clients always pissed off? Yeah. Oh, not a good fit. This is the low end of our target market fit, right? And so now you're dialing up and you're changing some of your pricing. And that's going to start to like kind of shear off this lower level crowd. But did it end up picking up some of the higher level groups?
Yes, like that was the big thing. Like we went from getting 8 clients who, you know, might be doing 50 to 100,000 in commission to starting at 250,000, right? Like it was a big shift in that level. And then started, like, over the years, we just kept doing things like less. We haven't changed actually now pricing. Pricing hasn't really changed in like 4 or 5 years. Probably should do that at some point soon. But it still works for us. So we haven't changed it in a while, but what we started doing is adding in more based on what we're seeing. Like, you work with a lot of agents, you know, right? Like, I can send 1,000 leads to one agent, 1,000 leads to another. What comes out of that's going to be wildly different, right? Like, we've had people who sent 1,000 leads to that didn't get a single deal. We've had some who've gotten like 6 deals on their first 100 leads. Like, it's all over the place depending on the systems that they have. So like the last year, our biggest change is we try to get everyone to go through an 8-week program first, where we help you build out your marketing business, like the marketing systems and everything, and like get the email going. Because like most of our turnover was people who couldn't convert the leads we were generating for them.
Yeah. So the quality of any lead is based on the quality of its response.
Yeah. Like I always say, I can change ads.
Quality. Yeah. And if you give the lowest level of engagement, you will still lose.
Yeah. And what I found is, like, if I can change, like, I can change copy to improve lead quality. I can put in little hoops to make them jump through to improve lead quality. But if you were converting at 2%, I might be able to change the ad to get you to 2.5, maybe 3. But if you want to get to 5 or above, that's all on the follow-up. Like, that is nothing that you're going to change on the ad side, really. So it's like, that's where the bulk of your work should be focused on, is how you're following up. And we've like developed something that we like, that does it really well. Like our big difference, like one thing I was never a huge fan of is, like the 12-month drip campaigns that's like just drips on the same content whenever they sign up for the next 12 months. I'm not a big fan of those. Like I don't want tips to winterize my home, like, 7 tips on what to do here. So what we've switched is we basically 2 buckets. The first one's like when someone responds, like you get a lead, the first round of response is just to get someone to reply to you. So instead of being like, hey, here's a bunch of value, it's like, hey, are you looking at this property for yourself or as an investment? Like that's the entire email that goes out. And it gets people to reply, start a conversation. Everyone else, we just move them into a weekly email that's always fresh content. So it's like, here's timely stuff that's new, and it goes out every week, but it's always concurrent. And like people who even bought and don't plan on selling and moving again for 7 years still want to get those emails. And it's not just like more home tips, it's community stuff. It's things like stuff that's relevant to anyone's life. And then you just, pepper in a few calls to action in there. Just a little quieter.
So I can see a lot of your evolution. I can see where you now understand like how this works. But what is I would always think that the challenge is trying to explain how this works to the client. So your client is a realtor, and what they're really asking you is, hey, can I have appointments? Like I want you to just get me into showing houses or just get me into listing appointments. Am I off in how they see it?
Yes, that's like what they ask for. But if you go back to like the Ford thing of like, if I'd asked what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? And it's like when we're stepping back and like, what are we really selling here? We're selling confidence that their marketing is being done the right way. Like that at the end of the day is they just want confidence. It's in because like a lot of people, like realtors, like, and not even just realtors, all small business owners. Like it's just that I throw a bunch of crap at the wall. Sometimes it sticks. A lot of the times I'm just looking for that next thing I can throw and see if it does anything and marginally improves it. But there's no like coordinated plan. Yep. I don't have confidence of what I'm doing. Like how many times I've heard like, yeah, like I actually have a great business. I have no idea how it works, but it's like strength of personality just drives enough referrals, but they don't necessarily have, and even on the referral side, any systems that keeps generating. So like for all they know, next year that'll all dry up. So instead, we've started doing is like, all right, we're going to sell the confidence that your things are going to be handled well, and there's actually a point and there's intention behind what we're doing, and that's why we developed a marketing framework that like it's like a 6-piece component for our clients. So like here's the 6 buckets. You need something in each one. Where are your gaps? What are you doing well now? How can we improve that with what we're doing? Because that will give you that confidence of moving forward and also help stop like chasing the shiny objects, right? Like you go to a conference, you hear 10 ideas. Well, if you have a framework to evaluate them and be like, okay, but my gap is in this section of these 10 ideas, only one of them will actually plug that gap. So that's the only one I need to do right now.
Yeah, so people shop for marketing like they're at a grocery store without a list, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're hungry. They're just going aisle to aisle. Oh, yeah. And they've taken a bunch of ingredients that won't actually ever turn into a single meal.
Yeah. The example I give is I can't tell you how many times I've had sales calls where someone's like, I was working with this company. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, the leads were shit. And then then I was at this company. Their leads were shit. Then I went to this company. Their leads were shit. So I'm coming to you. And what I always say is 6 months from now, you're going to the next one saying that and adding me to that list of the company that you said leads were shit with. Like, at that point, like it's like the old joke, like if everyone you meet is an asshole, you're the asshole.
Yeah.
Right? Like if every lead you deal with is shit, maybe it's your follow-up system.
At what point do you self-reflect, right?
Yeah. And that's where I think I've built up enough authority where I can just say that outright to people where a lot of people are a little nervous to like call an agent out on it. Like I've done this on stage before where I'll be like, how many people here believe that like, all you need is get someone on the phone and you can close them? And everybody, because I hear that all the time. It calls like, listen, Andrew, all I need is for you to get me on the phone with someone. And I'll be like, statistically, that's not true because everybody that comes to us says that. And the stats still show that that's not true.
Well, a lot of the time it's like, if I could make a device that would actually get you on the phone, we would be more effective than a device that gets them on the phone.
Yeah.
Because the biggest failure is failure to respond.
Yeah, and that's where we've done a lot of work too, is even adapting systems for people who won't get on the phone. Like your conversion rate will be a lot less if you're not willing to pick up the phone. But if you're going to be honest with me and tell me I'm not picking up the phone, I can devise systems that will either have them calling you or book a call into your calendar. But that's not going to be as effective as you hammering the phones. But it could be more effective for you. So like that's where we come in a bit too, is like customizing it based on the different agents we're dealing with, because not everyone's no matter what, right? Like people aren't going to pick up the phone. Like some people just, no matter what you train, how you try to motivate them, they're not picking up the phone, and they still need a solution.
But the funny thing about people is that people always change. Like when you take a look at how marketing is shifting during the shift in real estate, what do you see? So what was being done before that shouldn't be done anymore?
I mean, there's a lot of tactics you shouldn't do anymore, but like what worked for me 10 years ago and as an agent still works now. Like provide value and get it in front of them where they are, right? So like, I'll give you an example. It was kind of accidentally, but I killed it when I sold with Google Plus. But what I did with Google Plus is basically the same thing I do with Facebook and Instagram. And well, I don't really use Twitter that much anymore, even though I'm on it a lot. But like same thing I'm doing with my email marketing is I just like, what do people want? What's the value that we can provide them in that place? And how can we deliver it in the way that the platform wants us to? So that's the key, is like, people are like, I'm worried about how the algorithm's going to change. I'm like, I never worry about algorithm changes, because all they're ever going to change it to is to try to focus more on getting people what serves them the best interest of that platform. So when I look at Google, all they want to do is serve the best answer. If I can provide the best answer, whatever algorithm changes happen, for the most part, will actually help me. And it'll get rid of any bad actors that might be trying to game it. And I just look at, as long as I keep consistent doing that, might shift the tactics a little bit, but I don't change what we're doing that much anymore. Like what worked for us 5-6 years ago works for us today. Because we just look at like what's in the best interest of the consumer that we're trying to do. For our case, it's agents, or for our clients, it's people looking to buy or sell. And it hasn't impacted us much. Like every change with Facebook ads, and there's been a lot, our results have remained pretty consistent. Like things that other people, like we've seen their costs shoot up with like the iOS update. Our cost per lead hasn't changed on average at all.
That's interesting, because what you're telling me is that the whole game is to basically communicate with the humans through the computers.
Yeah.
And that kind of takes me into the next element is the reason that you bought Real Estate Magazine, because you got to understand so much about what people are looking for?
Well, I mean, there's a few different reasons I bought it. One, it's just a need in Canada, right? There's no Canadian focused option. Especially once REM shut down, there was basically no option at all for that, for like consistent news about the industry. Like there's little things here that add in realtor news, but it's like, it's a publication that's not their focus, or it's an American one that has like the odd Canadian article they throw out there. But there was nothing consistent about Canada, but the business is there. Like I look at what some companies do, like how much they could charge sponsorship at events because there were no other options, right? Like there's that need for ad dollars to go out there, but there weren't enough options to take it. So we looked at it from that, and like on its own, it's just an amazing business if it's done right online. And before REM was so focused on the print side, they didn't focus that much. Like for them, the online was more like an add-on bonus to the print ads. It's like, hey, well, we'll throw in a banner on the website with that. Whereas now it's no, like this is the avenue that will get you results. Let's show you why. Separately, obviously, it's pretty good for JSH too. The brand awareness it brings us, like the amount of like people. So we have a strategy build program that you have to apply, because we only take 2 clients a month. Like our application shot up 10x once we launched, because people started coming to the website, checking like, who are these guys who bought it? And it's been great for both businesses.
That's fantastic. And when you take a look at like what you feel as though the steps are like out of the gate, because I see you changing some things. Where's your head at when it comes to that?
So it's going to be incremental changes. So like originally I wasn't actually planning to launch until at least November or even January. I didn't want to launch in December because that's when no one's thinking about real estate as much generally. But I was having some conversations. So we actually closed on it in August. but we launched in September. But during some of my initial conversations, all the corporations were saying the same thing. We're doing our budgeting now for next year. So if you need any of our budget for next year, we need to know now when you're going to be around and that you are around and putting out content. So we sped up the launch to show everyone, hey, we're out there, bring it. So like right at the beginning, it was, let's continue kind of what they had. So like even at the beginning, we didn't have an editor yet. So the old editor, Jim Adair, he's been doing it since 1989. He came out of retirement to help us get it back. And so he started doing the articles for us. He did it. Well, I searched for a new editor. We hired her. She's amazing. And he helped her like over a transition period, figure out how it all works, introduced all the contacts. So like, especially at the beginning, besides the design change, which we changed it significantly, the content was Jim, the old editor, and then passing on to our new editor. So now it's more like incremental. Eventually we're going to bring in more video content, podcasts, like it's going to be true digital media. But it's because of like timelines and everything. And then revenue went to zero, right? Like they shut it down last April. Revenue was at zero. The page views were at like 5,000 a month. And that was just like what was left of the organic SEO type of traffic coming through. But that was it. So we got to get all that back. Like we're up to now about, I think it'll average out to about 80,000 a month already. After that's about 7 weeks. So that's a pretty good jump. So we're getting that back up there. The email list, saw it today. So we made a couple switches lately. 30,000 people on the email list, realtors in Canada, 50% open rate, and between an 11 and 20% click-through rate.
Woo.
Yeah. That's
a pretty cool machine.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with that. And that's where there's a lot of stuff coming that we can do now that we know we have that type of stuff there.
Yeah, so basically what you're telling me is that through email, you can access pretty much half of the Toronto real estate board if we just looked at numbers.
Yes, so we have about 80% of the list is Ontario, which is roughly the breakdown.
We also have a fair amount of friends out west, and so I'm sure it won't be long until things span out from there. And also, these are some pretty strong moves out of the gate, understanding what you have, understanding like where you're set up to basically turn things on.
Yeah.
But also great use of resources to bring in the editor, and sounds like a great guy to say like, hey, I'll get you this. I'll help you get this.
She's amazing.
Yeah,
she was a producer for Global News Toronto for years. She did CTV Toronto, CTV Vancouver. So she was deep into journalism.
That's fantastic. People should know her name. What is her name?
Jordana Springe. So we are going to be speaking together at Kathleen Black's conference coming up. I'm going to have her with me at the ARIA Reality Conference in November as well. So if people want to meet her, she'll be there. She's fantastic. She's really diving into learning real estate because she knows journalism really well, new to the real estate world. So we spend a lot of time educating her of like the nuances of the industry. And she's having fun. She didn't realize how much drama there can be in real estate.
Oh yeah, and how much like parts of this industry are the Wild West, and I'm in the wildiest, westiest part of it.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun getting her to know it and like introducing her to the different people and all the different. Like I remember her first call with someone. She's like, "Wow, this sounds like a terrible idea. What's trying to be made over here?" I was like, "Wait till you talk to this person." I talked to them. She's like, "Wait, it actually sounds like a great idea." It's like I'm like making sure she hears all the viewpoints and different things like that. She's really coming up quickly and now starting to like discern it all, and she's been awesome.
That's fantastic. I really see that this is an interesting gap to go after, because I'm seeing that this same gap exists in local communities. Like the local community newspaper hasn't adjusted to the times as well as some of the competitors for attention.
Yeah, and I've talked about this in podcasts and on stages before. Like if I were an agent and I had the budget, I'd buy my local community newspaper. Like there's a lot of value there of don't buy ads in it, just buy the publication itself. Like the amount of traffic you can then drive to yourself and brand awareness you can do, and even help your partners in the community. Like if you do a lot of work with mortgage brokers and stagers and other businesses locally, now you're supporting them even more with this tool. And they're going to support you even more in turn. Plus, then you can integrate IDX into a news publication and pull a lot of leads out of that as well. Like this is not something like a new agent could do. It's someone who with the budget to be able to do that. But I
And we
love
do see
always loved
examples of
idea.
that, right? Like we do see some realtors that are buying non-realestate.coms
Yep.
and working out that way. And I really think that they are in a really good position to fill this gap, because most agents that do very well are community builders and they're hubs, especially of small business entrepreneurs.
Like I love the idea of hiring a journalist, like any team hiring someone in journalism. Because like I'll give you an example, Jordana, our editor, like she'll pump out 3 new articles a day for our website. Like how many people can pump out 3 pieces of content a day consistently with quality? Like that's not as someone else who creates content, like 3 blog posts a day is a lot. And she's consistently doing that. And that's including sources and verifying information. Like that's a lot of work to get all that done. But imagine like what it could do for your business, your ranking and everything, if you're putting out that much good, consistent quality for your community.
Well, I have to say that a lot of journalists have felt undervalued over the last few years. And this could be the way that we see them adapt. We saw this with other industries where we thought that they were going away, or they thought that that was the end of their era. And the way they end up reinventing themselves is incredible. So I look forward to that. As a team leader, I would definitely consider that as part of our marketing. What else do you see as a trend?
I think the big shift that a lot of people are going to have to make, because like social, like especially for media, it's all about like driving traffic back to the website. But what's changing is everyone is what they're calling it 0-click content, is they want everyone to do it without having to leave the platform. That's been a trend for a while, and now it's becoming like the way to do it. So like we're looking at, like, for example, we're starting to shift again. We're starting to make some of these changes on like the Instagram account of what if we didn't try to drive traffic back to the website from Instagram, but kept it on there.
Mm-hmm.
And like we're using that at like our website, like realestatemagazine.ca, as the like source of information for these posts, but it's staying on Instagram, it's staying on Twitter, it's staying on Facebook organic is what it is from a business page perspective. But like LinkedIn, great organic engagement, Instagram, great organic engagement. So we're looking at stuff like that where it's like, let's bring that in and keep them on the platform, which changes how you post about the content, how you think about distributing it when you're like, I'm not trying to drive clicks, I'm trying to drive engagement and saves and shares. And that's what we want to get and keep them on that platform.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that can't really see this to kind of bring it in. When somebody has to use like a call now on a sign, they have to pull out their phone, unlock it, go to their phone app, and then dial that 10-digit number, right? At any point during that process, they could be interrupted, and then they're gone.
Yeah, and that's where QR codes are starting to work.
Someone who's already giving their attention on social media, they're already like in the zone, scrolling through Instagram or Facebook. For them to be able to action something without leaving the platform is hugely beneficial to the platform. And that's why they're setting this up. And it also means that you take like 7 actions that stop you in the middle of doing what you would normally be doing, and then minimize it to 2 clicks that are like consistent with what you're doing right now. You massively change outcomes.
And there's some interesting things I think will come. Like you're starting to see like on Twitter, like I think it's called the review that they use, but like you can actually subscribe to their mailing list from a Twitter profile. So you don't have to leave the platform now to subscribe to someone's mailing list. And now there's like, that's the thing. And like, I think there's one that actually everyone's going to copy eventually. They're not all there yet, but it's what TikTok does for new followers. You don't even have to leave the content you're engaging with. Because like right now, Instagram, like you see content, you click through to their profile, then you hit follow. TikTok, it's right there next to the video. It's like the first circle you see is click that button to follow someone. That's why it's so quick to gain followers, because they're like, great content, follow. They don't even think twice about it. It's just that quick thing and it goes. Like I think that's where more platforms is like making it easier for creators to bring people into their network. Because like for me, I want everyone on the mailing list eventually. That's the most valuable thing at the end of the day. But I want to keep them on that platform because then I'm going to be promoted more by the platform if I keep them there. But I still want to make it easy to get them on my mailing list later.
Yeah, like when a lot of people may not see the value of an email list. And really, if you were to talk about like the large numbers, you would see an email address, an email list that contains 100,000 people that can exceed 40% of its like open rates, that type of list sells for major dollars.
Yeah, well, that's how I valued REM, was the email list. Like, to me, like when I looked at the number I was willing to offer, I basically like, what am I paying for new subscribers to the Just Sell Homes mailing list? What's their size times what I can pay for it? There's my offer. And it's basically, for me, like, worst case scenario, if REM as a business didn't work, which it does definitely, I bought a mailing list. Right? Like, I've increased an engaged mailing list to what I have. So that's my worst case scenario, is I have a very engaged email list that I could have spent like a year or two building that size anyways with ads. So it's a good worst case scenario to have.
So I like how you kind of frame this decision, because you're like, here's my number because, and then if I have this other potential, that's the reason to do it. And I think that there's a lot of people that are raised in a way where they think that you need to bet $1 to get $1. Obviously, you decided that you wanted to be in entrepreneurship, came into real estate, now marketing, now what do we call you, media mogul?
I don't know that I'd use mogul yet.
Okay, well, you know when it fits. Okay,
I just go entrepreneur for
know.
now, or business owner, because I also have another company too. So we have 3 businesses. I just don't talk about the third one as much.
Are you okay to talk about it?
Yeah. So it's real estate development. We're doing, right now we have one project right now. We're doing about 20 townhomes in Newmarket. So we're just going through the rezoning, site plan application stuff now. So all that news recently from Doug Ford with his new legislation is very interesting for us. It adds a few, so far, what we can look at, all positives for the development side of things. Hopefully it can actually give us an extra unit on the site, but we're not sure about that yet.
Yeah, because they basically announced that you can put houses anywhere now.
No.
Like garage suite, basement suite.
So you can have up to 3
units.
So you can have up to 3 on any lot. Like, there's no more single family detached zoning. But it's not just anywhere. Like, there's still, conservation stuff. There's still to, adhere to setbacks and all that type of stuff. So you can't just go take a garden suite, drop it anywhere you want. It still has to adhere to certain setbacks and all those different things. But if you can fit a garden suite now on, you can just do a garden suite, basically. Mm-hmm. Not quite that simple, but basically. For us, like, even just a little thing, like, you can't mandate more than 1 parking spot. So the town that, like, we're doing our project on, they say you have to have 2 parking spots per unit, but the garage doesn't count as a parking spot. So when we're looking at that, we're like, well, that changes kind of how we have to lay out. Like, we'd almost have to remove a lot of the front yard if we want to do 2 outdoor spots for townhomes. But I would rather have people have a little bit of a front yard. Right? So it's like, I think it actually improves our actual plan, only putting 1 outdoor. Then we just, put some visitor parking on another section. But it's the interesting side of this for me, is like seeing kind of how all that works. My role is actually, to be honest, very minimal in that business right now. I'm going to be coming in at the sales and marketing part of it.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Yeah, that's where. So like right now, the rezoning site plan, I'm more just like an observer and like offering any sites, insights here and there as I can. But for the most part, an hour every other week type of thing for me. So pretty nice involvement at this level. And then obviously, when it comes to sales and marketing and all that, which also the nice thing for me is like JSH and REM can also help with that. Like, they all kind of can feed each other there. So we got a little bit of a machine we're building.
That's pretty cool. And taking a look at businesses that are also complementary, and you like, the one thing I'm seeing there is that you very much understand what your lane is. Yeah. And you're looking at things that will be complementary to that, because I imagine you get a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, and even that's been the interesting thing with REM, is we've had since we acquired it, we've had a lot of people being like, "Would you acquire us too?" And I mean, we're focused on REM now, on JSH still, so I'm not looking at acquiring anything else, maybe down the road. But there's been some interesting opportunities that have come up that, like, have kind of at least given me like a, maybe what if I did? I also know, like, back from what we were talking about earlier, like, stretching myself too thin is not a good thing. So keep it at these ones for now, and then maybe down the road, if we have more of a infrastructure set up, then we'll.
It's hard to resist, though. I have
I
to
know,
say
but
that like one of the things that led into this podcast was me having as many curiosity meetings as I did.
yeah,
And some of my best meetings ended up with people basically saying, let's run away together. Like they'd be like, listen, let's bring 130 grand and we're going to go do communications in South America. Or like, hey, like we'd really love to see you as an investor and advisor. This is the number. Would you come in? And like, it's so hard to resist when you hear these amazing ideas.
and at the beginning of JSH, I said yes to a lot of that, and I stretched myself too thin with a lot, and that's been my biggest thing. Is like now it's got to be like you can't have too much on the go. So like the nice thing, like REM, I probably could have even grown it faster than it is now, but still 80% or more of my attention is JSH. Like that's my main thing, and like our editor Jordana, like she runs the majority of stuff for REM. But I know like for me to be successful, I still need JSH running smoothly and well, and that's still my primary focus. So we're looking at some options there to bring in some senior people to help even at JSH, so I could put a little bit more attention. We're talking with some people about coming into REM, but yeah, like I think at this point I kind of made that decision. Some with like speaking stuff, I now have set a number that it's not necessarily the value I feel I provide as a speaker, even though I think I'm worth it. For me, it's the fee to make it worth it for me to leave my kids. That's how I price my speaking now. Is if I have like I drop all 3 kids off at 3 different spots every morning. I pick them up at the end of the day. So if I can still do that, my speaking fee is a lot lower than if I can't do that.
That's fair.
Yeah, like, that's how I value it, right? So like if people have different ways to do it, but for me, it's like being worth it to leave, and then separately also to leave the businesses I have during the day. What's that value? So like an event where I know I can get clients for those businesses, my fee might be lower than like I got one time asked to speak at like a gardening association event about like how you could generate leads as a gardener. I was like, I'm never taking gardeners as clients at Just Sell Homes, right? So like the only value to me is like the money I would make as a speaker at that event. So that number goes significantly higher. So I learned that from what I was telling me is like basically his threshold is for him to go to an event, he has to be able to make 20,000. That's either in speaking fee or clients he'll get out of it or any potential other opportunities. But like his number is for any event, 20,000. My number's slightly under that, but basically it's that same threshold for me. It's like, I need to see X amount of value from an event for me to take time out and go to it. And that's how whether that is clients we can get out, my speaking fee, a combination of it, advertisers we can bring over to REM, stuff like that. But I have a number in my head, and if I don't think I can get it out of the event, I'm not going.
That sounds fair. And like really to kind of trace this back, all of this criteria and this decision process you're using now comes from that pain point when you spread yourself too thin.
Yeah. And
right?
We lost clients, and I broke some trust with people, which for me is a big thing. Like people trusted me with their business, and to be honest, I messed it up, right? Like I don't want to do that again. I mean, sometimes it certainly will happen. It's not that everyone has a perfect record with everyone they work with, but it's a terrible feeling to have. So I'm like, I got to keep everything controlled. I'd rather grow slowly and steadily than like, hit the gas too hard, but then we break things as we go.
That's such an important thing to say. I really appreciate you sharing that with us because honestly, like the times that we grow from pain and the mistakes that we made to lead us to what we understand now, like your focus benefits from all this. Was there anywhere else that you really felt as though like you're like, man, I smashed my face. This is the lesson I carry from that.
I spent a lot of time not hanging out with my wife. Sorry, because I have 8, 16, 17 hours a day. Like Grant, she's been very supportive. Like it's not in the way that like it's caused issues, but like she's very supportive. She just would work at her job, then she'd start working too much because like she's like, well, if you're working, I might as well work. And then we both work too much. So we were like, now it's like, for example, today's Friday. Every Friday night for us is date night. Like there's no thing like if she's tired, like we might do a small one, then I'll go to basketball because I also have a standing Friday night basketball game that I have an invite to, and I love basketball. But I will only go to that if for whatever reason she's not up for a date night that night. But then we'll be like, it's Saturday now. Like it's always default Friday. If we do have to move for whatever reason, it's Saturday, and there's no chance it's not one of the two. So like that, it's like making that a priority over other things is also really important.
So I think that there's a lot of us that run through this in the beginning of entrepreneurship where we get all of what we consider value from our professional life.
Yeah.
And then the way we take care of ourselves and the way we take care of the relationships around us changes.
Yeah, and I've seen, like, you're in real estate, you see how much people get divorced because they're working too much. I didn't want that to be me. And especially with like kids, like I love like, and my dad busted his ass when he worked. He would be up at 5 and out the door by 5:30 every day. So, and I wouldn't see him until 6 or 7 at nights a lot. And I was like, he was great dad. I'm not saying that. It's just like I'd like to be more around than that. And with the internet, like I have that ability. Like I love dropping my kids off it's a lot, 3 kids, 3 separate drop-offs every morning solo. Like it's busy, but I'll give you an example. Like it's fun. Like, well, for me, I have on my phone, my kids right now are obsessed with Marry You by Bruno Mars.
Okay.
And every drive in the morning for that, like 30 minutes, because 3 drop-offs ends up being 30 minutes by the time you get it all done. It's blasting on repeat Marry You by Bruno Mars for about 3 weeks straight. And everyone's belting it out in the van. Like it's a ridiculous, stupid little morning thing that I just really enjoy. And it's fun. Then I pick them all up and we ask, and like on the afternoon ones, I can actually walk for them just the way like timing works. I can make it work walking. And it's fun because then I, walk with them and we talk about their day and we play tag on the run. And like that to me, I'm not letting that go. So it's, I have in my day, so 3:15 to 4:15 every day is blocked off on my calendar because that's pickup time. And nothing gets in that. Like I'll move other stuff out of the way, but 3:15 to 4:15, no questions asked. I'll take another call after I'm back, but because then my wife's home, so she can take it. So I do a lot of like 4:30 to 5 calls because then I'm back. She takes them for that half an hour. Then I'll go up and we start the dinner process.
So these are great mechanisms to make that work. When you think about like where you're going to be 5 years from now, what comes to mind?
I'm actually doing a leadership intensive for agencies right now where it's like a 90-day workshop on being a better leader. And that the first thing I did was an advanced retrospective of where you want to be. And there's actually the same thing as I want to have that schedule does not change. So, but now adding in more stuff for the kids. So for me, when I'm looking at it, it's not necessarily now like, hey, I want to triple the size of Just Sell Homes. Like I'm happy where Just Sell Homes is. Like we have a good number, we're profitable. And I don't need to like go really hard with it, especially with REM and our other company there. Like I would rather just focus my time. I'm more of a lifestyle business than trying to make that push to be like exceedingly wealthy, right? Like I like where we are. I like kind of, what we have going on. And right now, at least, maybe when the kids are older, then I'll shift and make a push again. We'll see what it's like. But for now, my focus is on doing enough so that I'm comfortable and happy, but that I'm there a lot for the kids.
That's awesome. So you have kind of a rough picture of it and you're just not sure how it's going to fit into those spots.
I got a pretty good idea. Like I know the hires I need to do that. But I've also made mistakes. I mean, everyone's made mistakes in hiring in their careers. So now I got ideas of, what are the exact stuff I need, and I'm not going to rush to find it. So I'll find the right people, slowly get them into the right spots, and then like slowly pull myself out of different things and make it work.
What's it like to get fired by Andrew Fogliato?
Hopefully pretty easy. I haven't fired that many people, to be honest, only a couple. First one was the hardest, obviously. It's one of those things you're dreading doing it. And I even like had a coach who was like, before I did it, I had to have a call with him, just like a 10-minute. And he's like, Andrew, you're being a bit of a bitch. You just need to do it. Like pull the Band-Aid off. He's like, you're going to message her right now. You're going to jump on Zoom with her. Cause like, we're all remote. So it's not that we could do it in person. She's like, you're not doing this over the phone. You're not doing it over Slack. He's like, I was never going to do it over Slack, but I thought about the phone. He's like, no, you want to look her in the eyes when you're doing it. And I was just honest, right? Like just, hey, it's not working out. We're here to support you, through the next stages. We'll be a reference for you if you need it, but it's obviously not working here. And it'll be really a lot easier than I thought it would be. But
leading up to that, man, like I remember the first time that I had to do that, and you think about how the people's family feels about you, and like so many things that are things that you realize later wouldn't have been top of mind in their relationship to you. right?
Yeah. And I look at too, like I've been fired before, and I'm like, what in my mind, like would I have wanted to happen there? Like a lot of how I do leadership stuff is either like, what would I want to have done if I was in their position, or what have bat bosses that haven't been good done that I thought were terrible? I will do the opposite of that. And looking at actually, I don't know if you've read. Have you read "Turn the Ship Around," the book?
No, like I've read It's Your Ship.
Look it up. So it's about a Navy submarine commander
Uh-huh.
who does like decentralized leadership, but like he brought it in. So like he was like he went into a sub that before had just been like top down leadership the whole way, like just leader follower, and he's like, I want the decentralized leadership, make it leader model, and he kind of explains the whole process and the results of how it all worked out, and it's excellent. I think you would really enjoy that one.
I appreciate the book recommend, man. I'll look that up.
It's good.
So on the other hand, when you bring on someone who's relatively new in that first 90 days, how do you look at that? Like how do you, maybe in the past, how did you know the people that were awesome were awesome?
So we go hard on culture fit. That's for me actually in the interviews is the most important thing is not technical skills. Maybe for hiring more senior, but we do hire a lot of junior people and then train them up because my background was training. Like it's a thing that I'm used to doing. But we've now, like once we bring them on, I actually have a tier system. So we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. Each of the tiers has listed out, like if you are this skill set and like, here's what you would need to do to be in tier 1. Here's what you need to do, get to be in tier 2. Tier 1 and 2 would be what we consider a junior employee. Tier 3 and tier 4 would be more senior employees. And once you get to tier 4, then it's what's like the next career path within us that you could get to. But like in that position, every position has 4 tiers and you work your way through. If you can get through to tier 4 in 6 months, great. There's no, like, it's just, there's set out, like, here's what you need to do to be tier 4. If you can get there in 3 months or it takes you 2 years, that's where it is. And pay basically would correspond to which tier you're in. So it's pretty straightforward and they know what they have to work on. We do one-on-ones with everyone on the team every single week. We're like, part of it is like, all right, where, like first one we did, we brought in the tier systems, like, where do you feel you are in the tier? And then after they told me, and I was like, and here's where I feel you are. Now, how can we close the gap to get you to the next one? And now let's set out a plan for professional development to get you to that next tier. So then they also have that transparency of like, if I want to get paid more, if I want more responsibility, it's very clear what they have to do. And if they can bring those tier systems to me and be like, I feel I'm this, and this now, it's a very quick decision on my end what to do with them. So it's provided that came from an agency coach that I had for a bit. Excellent guy. And one like you'd appreciate him as a content marketer. It's unbelievable. But just does a fantastic job. And that was an idea he brought in with me on a coaching call of like, you need to bring in this tier system for your employees. And everybody like raves about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Well, that's obviously like why you've been able to scale your business and work into a situation where you kind of jump from being a solopreneur to an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. That's something that I find is interesting around us is the people that can be like, they can have work without employment, I guess is the way to look at it, but they only build themselves a job.
Yeah. But you can also, like it's basically, do you go the agency route or the freelancer route? Like if you're looking at Facebook ads, right? Like let's take Facebook ad operator as an example, which is what I was when I started Just Sell Homes, basically. I could have either, to make more money, gone just to higher end clients, or I can hire people under me and go the agency route. But there's still a lot of value because like managing people is still a headache. Like even if they're great people, can still be a challenge and a headache that some people just don't want. Other people don't want the responsibility of like their income is still tied to my efforts, right? Like that is a responsibility to bear if you're doing it. But I mean, I feel it's worth it. But other people like, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to manage people. I'd rather just have a few nice clients. As I get better at what I do, I can charge more and just, that's how I'll increase my living. Just be a nice freelancer on the side. There's pros and cons to both. I every now and then test out freelancers that way, then try and bring them in. Bring them in-house after.
Yeah, I think that that's something that's also a great way to start relationships, and collaboration can be at those different levels. In fact, I don't know many businesses that can operate all in-house anymore.
It's possible, but it's hard. And you're not getting the best always the best people that way. Like if you've ever read the Dean Jackson one, it's like who, not how. So basically every problem you look at, who can solve this, not how do I solve it. It just makes your life a lot easier because there's always someone who knows that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's something that makes successful entrepreneurs is they end up being incredibly resourceful.
Yeah.
Right.
Or have a lot of connections. Like it's people always like some people understand the true value of relationships, but they think of it more as like just straight business referrals. But even just someone who could solve a quick problem for you, they don't have to spend 3 years figuring it out. Like those relationships are just as, if not more important.
So right now, everybody's talking a lot about the economy. Is that something that's on your radar?
Oh yeah. I mean, we've lost clients for it. We've gained other clients because of it. Like, the last rate hike, which was yesterday, within like an hour, we had a client cancel. He was like, with the rate hikes, my costs are going up. I got to cut expenses. And we actually had another one reach out being like, I need to take my marketing more seriously now because it's harder to come by business. Let's chat. Like we've seen kind of both there. So I'm always cognizant of it, and we're just making sure we're not like ramping up our own expenses just in case. We're being careful about what we do and looking at, but like I've tried to look back at what's happened in other recessions in real estate, and typically the top agents remain the top agents. You often every now and then have someone who like jumps up to the top and someone at the top who will fall away. Like that does happen, but it's more like the bottom tier of agents that fall out of the industry. And that's typically not who we work with. So I'm not like overly concerned or anything about it, but I mean, it'd be ignorant not to pay attention to what's going on and have plans depending on which way it goes.
Yeah, I think even more now than ever, it's important for business owners to make the best decisions with each of their dollars that they can.
Yeah.
If there's anything that's not monitored, kind of take a look at it. But I also agree with you. I think that like one of the things that we saw during COVID was online lead generation. Like for a little while there, it was really cheap.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because everybody dialed back so much, right?
Yeah, for like if you were willing to spend the leads, but the cost per lead hasn't even changed much now. Conversion rates, that's where there's some change, just because not as many people are buying or selling. But like I was saying, like if you have a good email list and a good email plan, double down when they're cheap, because you're going to stay in touch with them long term. Like just because they're putting their plans to hold on move now, then stay in touch with them because they're still going to move. They're just waiting to be comfortable to do it. So keep in touch with them and just keep pushing and making yourself like that's most of our sales for Just Sell Homes. Like I do not hunt for sales. It is 100% people reach out and it's like, hey, I've been following you for years. I'm ready to go. Let's do it. Like that's majority of our phone calls. Like that was actually the funniest switch for me with REM is that isn't there now, right? Like JSH sales, it's just like people come on, they're like, all right, I'm ready to go. What's the next step? Maybe they have a few clarification questions, but that was about it. REM, I don't have that history with people. Like REM has history, but it's a very different type of sales call that took me a few to get used to that style again of that. Like I have to prove the value on the call. And I'm so used to just people being like, oh no, I've been following you for years. I'm ready. You just tell me what to do. So it's an adjustment.
You're trying to explain it. Like, no, this isn't how this goes.
Yeah.
You tell me you're good now. No.
Yeah, like that's what we do. Wait, your question.
Well, how does it feel to be back in the saddle then?
It's fun. I mean, it's a new challenge, right? Like anytime you take on, like I love like taking on new things. And so like one of the things when I was an employee, like I remember I worked for the government one summer university. Like I figured it out really quick. I remember the first week, like we did 2 weeks of training. Then the first week I was like on the job. She gave me a quota to hit. I think it was like I had to do 50 files. And I finished Wednesday morning. And I was like, great. Like, so week one's done. You gave me the number to see what I could do. Like, what's going to eventually be my like real target every week? She's like, that's it. Like, that's your target. Every week is 50. I was like, and there was no way to like, and like I started seeing like, well, could I double that in a week? And then we were like told to slow down because we're making the full-timers who were there permanently. And that was a summer job look bad because their target was the same as ours.
Oh, wow.
And that like, it kills your motivation, right? Like it's just a pure 100% grind. And I'm not built to do that. Like same thing every day, no improvement, no. And then that was one of the things I learned is like, this is not going to be for me. Like I did it and I just slowly it saps away your energy. Like it worked for a little while, but like 6 months in, I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And it was like the last 3 months I was so disengaged, but they still offered me a full-time job when I graduated the day I quit. Like I quit and they're like, okay, but I know you're focusing on school, but when you're done, you got a full-time job waiting. I was like, yeah, that's not happening. Like, I can't do that. It's not like I admire people who can do it, because like there's value in people who can, like, you know, just do a good 8 hours, shut it down, never have to think about it again. Like I admire people who can do that. I can't.
I really think that a lot of people can do it for a limited amount of time.
Yeah, but I know.
And I think that if you leave people in that position, you'll ruin racehorses, which is what they were talking, like what your experience was.
Yep.
And the only people that will end up like staying in that position long term are normally people that will only like pursue very low hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's
which is like not the conception of the position.
But there is value. Like some people just have pursuits in life that have nothing to do with work, right? Like they want to be the best hiker or marathon runner they could be. Work is just the 8 hours a day they have to do to give them more time to be able to run and get better gear for that. And I get that. That's not me.
Me neither. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. I really appreciate you sharing a little bit about your vision. And honestly, I have to, there's some people that are probably new to talking to you because of Real Estate Magazine. And I really think that they should check out Just Sell Homes, because your credibility in marketing there stands. Like real estate is one of the most competitive marketing spaces there are. And that's something that it looks like you're going to do at scale now.
Trying. We're getting there.
Well, I am very much looking forward to it, and always in support. And thank you very much. This has been Andrew Fogliato. He is the owner of Real Estate Magazine as well as Just Sell Homes. And my name is Taylor. I am the marketing strategist at Gravidia, and this is Leadership Line of Sight. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.